welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I do put out a video at least once a week, and when I can, a little bit more. Well, oh my goodness, today I do have a topic that makes me smile, makes my heart sing, and being the end of February, we're gonna cap this month with another love story. Today, I am talking about my home. So from Cape Breton, it's Saturday night. And when I talk about my home, I'm not talking about my house. I'm talking about the island I live on. If you're not familiar, I do live on an island called Cape Breton Island. And it is by far the most beautiful, picturesque, raw, natural island I've ever seen. Now, I'm not a world traveler. However, Condé Nast Traveler and Travel and Tourism magazine have rated Cape Breton Island #1 island in North America for a number of years in a row. And there are hundreds of thousands, no exaggeration, of tourists that agree with them and come here every year. So where is Cape Breton Island, you may ask? Well, I'll be happy to tell you. It is at the most northeasterly tip of Nova Scotia on the eastern part of Canada. It is shaped like an artist's palette. You actually may see a map behind me, and I did make a craft that you can watch the video. I'll post the link in the show notes and in the show description. The island itself is just over 10,000 square kilometers. If you're not from Canada or you don't do kilometers, you need to put that into Google to convert that, because I can't do that math in my head. So it's over 10,000 square kilometers. If I were to say Prince Edward Island, would you know what I was referring to? Some of you might. The smallest province in Canada? Well, our island of Cape Breton is twice the landmass size of Prince Edward Island. So if that gives you any reference. We are geographically located, like I said, northeasterly tip of Nova Scotia. And if you were to look at a map of Canada, which I will try my best to get this technology to work for me today, and I'll insert some clips so you can follow along, but if I can't, here I go. I'll try to explain it the best I can. So in in Canada, you have the mainland of provinces. Starting from the furthest west at British Columbia to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and then New Brunswick. From New Brunswick, it does branch into Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia is kind of like, if I were to say this is New Brunswick, Nova Scotia comes down and has like a piece that comes off of it. Comes off of New Brunswick. So it's like a little arm or finger sticking out. And nestled between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, just right there, is Prince Edward Island. And at the northerly tip of Nova Scotia's mainland is Cape Breton Island, my home. And just above Cape Breton Island, further to the northeast, we have the island of Newfoundland. Or Newfoundland, or Newfound Land, depending on where you're from and how you're pronouncing it. But here in Cape Breton, we call it Newfoundland. Anyway, I digress. But that is where we are located. The temperatures here are fairly good. You would think I'm in Canada and East Coast Canada, it must be frigid. There is snow on the ground, and today, the last weekend in February, it is cold out. I'm not gonna lie. It's cold. I wouldn't be out in the garden today. It's probably negative 10 degrees Celsius. My dogs are outside and they're playing, so it's not frigid out, but it's darn cold. When does it get warm? I'd say in the next month or so, we should get to the plus side of the 0 mark. For those in the US, that would be in Fahrenheit above 32, maybe in about a month. February, March, and early April tend to be our worst for storms and cold weather. Believe it or not, in January, we still had tulips pushing earth. So I planted tulips in the fall and garlic, and they were sprouting in January. Then in April, we will be into the nice spring weather. And we may have a long spring, or we may pop right into summer. And you may think or ask yourselves, well, summer can't be all that hot up there. I mean, it's Canada. You would be shocked. Our temperatures in the summer can reach 30 to 40 degrees Celsius, which if I'm talking Fahrenheit, I'm anywhere between 80 and 100 degrees. You heard me right. We do reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. It doesn't last all that long, maybe a few weeks, but it does get super hot. And let's add 100% humidity to that. So you can see my hair today is a little curlier than it usually is. I had some braids in. But this is what my hair would look like in the heat of the summer. It's natural. It naturally has a wave to it, a bounce to it. In the winter, though, it's pretty flat. So our hot summers produce magnificent swimming. Here on Cape Breton Island, there are over 80, did you hear me right? 80 beaches. Between the lakes and the ocean and the Gulf, the swimming's amazing. The Gulf of St. Lawrence on the western side of Cape Breton Island can heat up to 24 degrees Celsius. That's like almost bath water. You would think, oh my God, now there's jellyfish, right? Sometimes, but not all the time. And the North Atlantic, there's a Caribbean current that comes up right beside us. So our Atlantic Ocean waters are not frigid cold in the summer. They can get upwards of room temperature, which that's all right. You can go swimming in that, no problem. The only thing that you have to watch out for on the eastern side of the province where the Atlantic Ocean is are the man-of-war jellyfish, because the waters are heating up. So those man-of-war jellyfish can come up that side, but they don't go over to the west side of the island. That's just regular jellyfish. We do also have to watch out for, of course, some sharks and some other large fish and mammals in the water. But I don't take that stuff, too seriously to keep me out of the water. I just know that it's there because I've grown up on an island that I respect the ocean and the Gulf. Now, the lake I'm talking about, when I said there's beaches on a lake, that is the largest saltwater lake in Canada. So you heard me right. I live on this beautiful island that hundreds of thousands of tourists visit a year, and there's a gulf, and there's an ocean, and there's a saltwater lake. You gotta be kidding me, right? No, it is paradise. It is certainly paradise. We also have camping and hiking, and there's zip lines. It's abundant with summer activity. But before I totally dive in and spill my heart and all of that stuff, let me tell you a little bit about how Cape Breton Island became inhabited. 1497, that's when Cape Breton Island was first discovered by John Cabot. Have you ever heard of the Cabot Trail? It is world famous. The world famous Cabot Trail is here on Cape Breton Island. It's almost a 300-kilometer drive, so it's like a highway, and you drive around the northern tip of the island. That is named after the first explorer to discover Cape Breton Island, again, John Cabot, in 1497. Skip forward a few centuries and we have the French. They came in the 1600s and settled. They then developed the fortress of Louisbourg on the eastern shores of Cape Breton Island. That fortress was, oh my goodness, they started in 1713, and when they finished building it in 1745, the next day they were invaded by the British. Go figure, right? But this fortress was invaded, and then the French got it back, and then it was invaded again, and the British actually took it over and destroyed it. But those destroyed ruins have been rebuilt. And that fortress is the largest fortified site that's been reconstructed in North America. You want to go ghost hunting? Go to the fortress. Actually, pretty much anywhere on Cape Breton Island, or in Nova Scotia for that matter. Did you know that we're one of the oldest provinces in the country? So if you want to go ghost hunting, you come here. Now, that being said, of course, I like a little spooky here and there. I have to say I am a spooky girl. I do want to talk about some of the other sites on the island that are pretty significant and pretty rare. The culture here is superb. Absolutely superb. We have not only the French, so that French is Acadian French. We can go in on the actual culture of the Acadians, or you can listen to my other podcast about the Fortress of Louisbourg. We also have the Mi'kmaq, which are Indigenous people of Canada. The tribe here in Nova Scotia is called Unamaki, and they are the First Nations, or first person people of this nation, and I am proud to live on Unamaki soil. Then we have my culture. Can you tell which culture that might be? Red hair, brown eyes, pale skin. Yeah, I'm a little Scottish. Just a little bit. Okay, a lot, and a lot Irish too. I am 97% Scottish-Irish, but I think you figured that one out. So we have the Scot culture here, and so much Scottish culture. Do any of you watch Outlander? I know I do. Why? Well, there's a few reasons why. I think the first reason, we can all guess that one. But the second reason is because the Scottish history in that show is verbatim. Like, this is the history we learn about here. Because Cape Breton Island is the second largest natural Gaelic-speaking population outside of northern Scotland. We do speak Scottish Gaelic here, and we do have the only Gaelic college in North America, right here on Cape Breton Island. What else do we have here? Well, we have a living history museum, which depicts the Scottish culture from like the last days in Scotland to moving to Nova Scotia and setting up homes here in Cape Breton. That one is awesome. They actually speak Gaelic there. I speak a little Gaelic, like just a little bit to start the party. So let's have a little Gaelic lesson. If I were to say to you, how are you? And you were good, here's what that would sound like. Kinamahashif. Hamiguma. So I said, how are you? And you said, I am good. I don't speak all that well for Gaelic. That's just a little bit I know. Of course, I know a little tiny bit more, but not enough to carry a conversation or anything like that. The Gaelic culture here, though, is very strong. Between the language, the dance, the music, it is something, if you're interested in Scottish culture, and you don't want to travel across the pond to Scotland, come to Cape Breton Island. You will not be disappointed. Now, I mentioned tourism and a few different things in there. So I mentioned the Fortress and the Living History Scottish Museum and a few different things. Anyway, I do want to maintain maybe a little bit more focus or highlight. I can't believe I did this. I didn't hit record for the podcast. This microphone is doing nothing. Nada. Wait, did I hit record? Still going. Oh, it is recording. Oh my God. All right, I guess we were recording the whole time. I am having a time with this technology. Let me tell you, let me move that candle out of the way before I light my hair on fire. Alrighty then. So, Cape Breton Island today. What does it look like? What are people like there? What's crime like? They're great questions, you know? Thank you for those. So, life here is really, really quiet most days. I live in a town or I wouldn't even call it a city, a town. And the population of the town I live in is roughly 15,000. The city of Sydney, which is the only city on the island, has about 30,000 people. So it's a small city, very small. In comparison to like a metropolitan area like Halifax, or let's say Moncton, or Charlottetown, or Toronto. These cities are fairly small. When I go to the big city, when anybody on the island says we're going to the big city, we mean Halifax. So Halifax has over 500,000 people. When you're coming from an island, a whole island that has only 130,000 people, going to the big city is a big deal. We actually make it like a weekend affair, if you know what I mean. Book the hotel room, go swimming, go shopping. They have all the greatest stores. They have Costco, they have IKEA. But here in Cape Breton, we don't have all that. We have some Walmarts. We have one main mall that has maybe 50, 60 stores in it. There's a Winners, but I think it's being replaced by a HomeSense. We have like a Michaels and a Home Depot and a Canadian Tire, but it's not a large place. The island is really more of a rural living place. We're more into the tourism and definitely into the fishing. The main industry here is fishing, and since the North Atlantic doesn't freeze, yeah, you heard me right, we don't freeze. So there's fishing year-round here. Nova Scotia lobster is available all year round. Our lobster season for this area of Cape Breton Island is May 15th to July 15th. So if you are a lobster lover and you want fresh North Atlantic lobster, come to Cape Breton Island in early summer and you're guaranteed to have some. I don't like lobster myself. I love snow crab. That is my favorite crustacean. Snow crab is delicious. The tourism on the island is pretty hefty. It usually from May to October-ish, although there's people coming in for tourism all year round. There is winter interest here. There are ski hills, there's snowmobiling, there's all kinds of stuff to do. But the summertime, like I said, May to October is our primary season. And the reason being is everything I mentioned earlier. So we have a lot of beaches, there's lots of camping and hiking, there's kayaking, there are many waterfalls to hike to and see, there's horseback riding, so there's a lot of outdoor adventure to have. And in the fall, well, you come for the colors. We have, I mentioned earlier, the Cabot Trail, which is through our highlands. Our highlands are the highest peaks in Nova Scotia, mountain-wise. And did you know that the mountains in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, as well as Newfoundland, are part of the Appalachian Mountains? You heard me right. We do have Appalachian Mountains here. So what you would see in, say, Vermont or New Hampshire, Maine, throughout the east coast of the US, that's what you'd find here. We have stunning, stunning views. Many people say the Cabot Trail reminds them of the drive through California, or parts of Cape Breton Island remind people of New Zealand. So put those images in your head, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed in Cape Breton Island. If you've listened to the end, all the way to this point, then you have heard me talk about many things I love about Cape Breton Island. But in order for you to know all about this island, you need to come here. You need to experience it for yourself. So don't just take my word for it. I've inserted as much footage as I can. And if that technology didn't work for me today, I apologize. Because I know last week I really tried to get the video version of this podcast up for you, and I ended up just putting a picture up of the logo of the podcast and a few pictures of Al Capone. Because frankly, the video version would not translate. It just wouldn't do it. That's why I think a few minutes ago I got a little hyperactive or hypersensitive or heart attack worthy. But my audio wasn't recording. Because if I lost that and the video, we wouldn't have a podcast. Let's just say that. At least not today. All right. I think that's it. I wrote a few things down to the side of me here. I think I've covered them all. I think we're done. So with that said, next week I have quite the episode for you. I hope you will all join me. Schedule it for next Saturday, March 4th. On Sunday, March 5th, is the 25th anniversary of my brother's death. And I would like to dedicate a whole video to him. So please join me. Watch it. And if you like my videos, if you like this podcast, make sure you share it with your friends. Because I'm here. And I really like doing this. And I would really like your help to grow the channel. So with that said, to all of you, take care, friends.